And whoops, wrong button. We are recording with Mr. Mike Vecchione on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 at 12:09 p.m. Eastern Time to talk about Fallen Angel Part 3 or Book 3. You've been on here a zillion times before. You're actually one of the original guests, and we've talked about tons of your books, Crooked Brooklyn. I think I got to know you through Bruce Sackman, Behind the Murder Curtain, and then all your short stories like The Sculptress. That was the last time you're on here. And for everybody listening, you can go into the description. You can find a link to all of the books. I think I've read all of them on Kindle, but I know that you have narrated, I believe, the most recent one, which is good because it always like it more when when the author of the book reads it. But you also, I mean, you you have the New York, you have the voice, so it works well. It wouldn't work if I was reading like a mafia book or like a
I
New
got you.
York crime underworld. I couldn't do it.
Well,
But yeah, of
thank you for first of all, thank you for having me, Tom. It's
course.
always a pleasure to be on the show, and we have gotten to know each other, and you've really done a great job for me in terms of publicizing all of my books, and
And vice versa, you've
we
given me content.
well, thank you. I'm happy to do it. I did do just so that we could get just kind of tie up a little bit the Fallen Angel things. This audiobooks. Book two will be out on audiobook very soon. I'm not sure exactly when, certainly before Christmas. And I'm going to be starting the narration of book three as soon as I get an answer on that's what we talked about before with regard to the Jimmy Dennedy book. So thank you very much, and I'm excited. And by the way, when the book was released Thursday, I had a book release signing party at a very interesting little bookstore here in New York City called
I,
the
s-
Mysterious Bookshop.
I think I saw that on Facebook
Yeah,
last night.
and it's a great place. It's a great place, and a lot of people, a lot of authors use the bookshop as a jumping off point for their book signings, and it's terrific. So it was released on Thursday, and when the publisher came, she was one of the guests and came in, and we talked, and I said to her, "Listen, I have enough stories for book four." I said, are we going to do it? So before I even got the full sentence out, she said, "Yes, of course. Book four is on." So there will be a book four, and I will do that. Of course, it won't be if I continue with the Hard Guys Cry writing that one. I'll probably wait. I will wait. I'll have to wait until after I finish. So I might not have book four out until sometime late next year. But in any event, book three is out, and I'm excited about it. I really I think that it's a little different in this sense that you know the stories are three very big cases slash events that occurred in Brooklyn that I was involved in, and they were the kind of events that really kind of shook the borough at it to its core, and I use them because after book one and two, I the character, the devil character, is getting frustrated. Michael Gioca, the protagonist of the book, but the devil's antagonist, is beating the hell out of him. I mean, every time he turns around, whatever crime, whatever horrible situation the devil has instigated, Michael has been able to answer it and to send the perpetrator away, which is really a defeat for the devil. Um, so I'm really happy about this because I'm able to discuss in the book in the whole situation of a novel. I call it a true crime fantasy because the events, as you know, are true and happened, and I was involved with them. Um, but I think maybe for those of your listeners and viewers who maybe haven't or don't remember the premise, let me just kind of go back and give the premise to the whole Fallen Angel series. Um, Essentially, what it is the concept is Satan comes to Brooklyn after having been in different parts of the world creating chaos and instigating horrible criminal acts When this starts to happen in Brooklyn, a priest in the Vatican's Office of Exorcisms in New York is curious about the beginning of this and the reason why it's happening. And what he does is he goes back and looks at all the other horrific cases that have happened around the world, and he saw something. And what he saw was that these horrific acts, trials, etc., um, all preceded satanic exorcisms. So, and the exorcisms was of the perpetrator who committed these crimes. In other words, the devil took hold of this individual, instigated him, and tempted him, and got him to commit these horrible crimes. And that told the priest that Satan was involved in these things. And when it happened in Brooklyn, and started to happen in Brooklyn, he goes to his boss in the Vatican, in the office in Vatican City, and talks about the results of his research. They then go to his boss actually recognizes that he's right, he's correct, and he thinks that he knows what needs to be done. And they travel to the United States, and they have a meeting with the Attorney General of the United States, and come up with an idea. Because what's happening is the devil is winning in all of these situations by undermining the case, either killing witnesses, undermining evidence, destroying evidence, and it seemed to this Vatican priest that the prosecutor who was involved in these trying to put these bad guys away was not up to the task. And that's why the devil was winning. So when they come to Brooklyn, the thought is that they need to get someone who is up to the task, someone who's got the intelligence, the fortitude, the wherewithal to go into battle against Satan. And they approach the Attorney General, and he gets the president's okay, and they form this commission, secret organization, which is designed to recruit prosecutors in the various jurisdictions where the devil is operating. And in Brooklyn, they have a member of their group is a former exorcist. He's a priest, and he happens to be the best friend, or one of the best friends of the head of the rackets division in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, this guy Michael Gioca. And he recruits him to be the man, to be the man. So that sets the stage. And how did I get this idea? I got it because I was trying to sell a book based on of true stories, but short stories, a book of short stories. And book agents told me that true crime fans like to have long form stories. They don't like the short story form. So they said, if you find a way to tie all of these stories together, well, that could be a way to sell a book. And I had this idea from way back when I began trying cases again in the Brooklyn DA's office. I had a case, and you know it because we talked about it, involving the murder of a young Hasidic Jewish girl on the Williamsburg Bridge, which is a bridge between Brooklyn and Manhattan. And the perpetrator who I convicted at trial had basically destroyed this young woman. He stripped her of her clothes, strangled her, stripped her of her clothes, and then later set her on fire.
Yeah. Beyond fucked up.
Right. So when I summed up to the jury, I laid this whole thing out, and I said, it's as if Satan had come to Brooklyn and killed this young woman on the Williamsburg Bridge. So that stuck in my head. And I decided to use that as my kind of the wraparound story. How do you wrap the short stories together? Well, that was the overarching scenario. And I sold it to a publisher who liked it and said, she told me that I think you should do 3 books because a series is really what I'm interested in. And that's how we are where we are today. She originally said 3 books. And now she's given the go-ahead for me to do a 4th book, and who knows? Maybe there'll be a 5th and a 6th. I don't know.
Keep it go. Keep
But
yeah.
yeah.
Keep going. Keep it going.
So let me tell you about book three and why it's to me my favorite. I had at the end of book two, the devil had recruited an arsonist to kill and set up I'm sorry, not kill, but set fire to a hotel in Manhattan. And why he did that is because he knew that the hotel in Manhattan would draw the best fire marshals in the city to come and investigate. And he wanted to kill two fire marshals who, in the previous book, had helped the Gioca solve a case involving the death of a firefighter. So he sets fire to this hotel. Two fire marshals, the ones that he wants to kill, respond, and they fall through the floor of the hotel that has been burnt. One dies, one lives. The there's no arrest initially, and but by the time the book ends, the arsonist has been arrested because he's arrested for and convicted. I'm sorry, arrested for another crime in Brooklyn, but that's beside the point. So what happens is the at the end of book two, the powers that be realize that the Manhattan DA's office can't try this case because there's a conflict of interest. A person who died in the hotel was related to the Manhattan District Attorney's wife. And that created a conflict of interest, and the case was then transferred, had to be transferred to Brooklyn, and Gioca gets the case. So the book opens with Gioca having won the case and having sent the arsonist to jail and to prison. At the very beginning of the book, what the reader will see is the setup of an escape from Attica State Prison, which is a notorious prison here in New York. And the escape is planned by the devil because he wants the arsonist out. He's become a real interesting pawn for the devil, a guy that will do anything. So the arsonist and another inmate escape from Attica prison. Now, how do I set up the escape? The escape comes from a story that a client of mine told me, a guy who had been in jail, who told me about an escape that he was planning. He was planning. And what he had done is they had compromised one of the inmates who did the paperwork in the prison's office of purchasing office, and in the laundry of the prison they have these big, huge washing machines that sometimes go down, and they need to buy new ones. So in this situation, the guy tipped the purchasing officer tipped off my ex client that we're buying new machines. And if you want to do what you want to do, then now's the time to do it. And here's what he wanted to do: escape. How was he going to escape? He was going to climb into the old washing machine, which was going to be loaded onto the truck after the new washing machine was delivered to the prison. And then the truck would drive away with my client in this washing machine, and he was out. Okay. Now in real life, the guy in the purchasing office got cold feet and never helped set it up, so they abandoned it. But I never forgot that. It was such an interesting
Yeah.
situation to me that I used it in this book. And the devil's guy, the arsonist, and another person who was convicted of killing the relative of a police officer in upstate New York escape. And they escape with the devil's help. And the devil sets it up so that when they could go to a place that's it's summertime, but when they get down to where the devil is going to keep them safe, it would be winter, and there would be no one around to kind of identify these people. But the devil really is using them because he has something he wants them to do before they go to this safe house. He wants them to go to Brooklyn, and there's a jewelry store that in a particular neighborhood that is owned by the relatives of Holocaust victims. and he wants them to rob the place of the jewelry, the diamond delivery that's made every Tuesday or Thursday, I forget, at a particular time. That's what he sets up, right? But the real thing he wants them to do, the devil knows that there are two essentially off-duty or plainclothes cops who are hired by the store to be the security for the delivery of the diamonds. Every time the diamonds are delivered, these two cops, with the permission of the police department, are on the scene to guard the delivery. Okay. What the devil knows is that if these guys, his men, show up with guns at this jewelry store, there's going to be a shootout, and he wants them to catch the cops unawares and shoot and kill the two cops. That is the point of the setup, and that's what happens. Except one of them, the devil's pawn gets shot and killed, and the other guy gets away. So now, why is this interesting? Well, it's interesting because I did a case involving two police officers who confront two individuals who had come out of Attica prison, not on an escape, but were released because the governor felt that they were involved in Attica in a very big riot situation in Attica, and it became a one of these cause celebs, and a lot of the left wing liberal people got involved, and the governor made such a mistake in allowing some of these people from the riot to essentially get out of jail. I don't know, remember why, but they did. Two of them showed up in Brooklyn to set up a robbery with another one of their colleagues, and two cops confront them. And they pull guns and they kill the two cops. And the two cops are, believe it or not, friends of our buddy Jimmy Dennedy.
Oh,
Dennedy
damn.
Dennedy is in the precinct off duty when he hears about the shooting, goes to the scene and realizes that it's these two cops. And on the way to taking them to the hospital, he passes an automobile accident. He's curious. He says, it seems strange. Let's go. He says to another cop, let's go back to that automobile accident. I just have an instinct that something that's somehow connected to the shooting of the cops, and it is. The guy who gets away of the two bad guys gets hit with a bullet, loses some blood, passes out, and crashes his car. So Dennedy makes this arrest of this person who was part of a group called the Black Liberation Army at one point,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he off duty. It's just an amazing thing. But the case the case starts to disintegrate. And in my story, I use this, and and I don't have necessarily the case disintegrate, but what I do use is something that happens that causes the real case to disintegrate. The bullet that's in the leg of the bad guy, let's call him, the doctors will not remove it from his leg. It's a cop's bullet. We know it, and it would definitively prove that he was the guy who shot and killed these police officers. The doctors won't take it out of his leg because they fear that if they take it out, it'll cause more damage. So that bullet stays in this guy's leg throughout the entire trial. And in my case, what I do is, my case, in the story, what I do is I am able to have an expert from the FBI look at the X-rays of his leg, and he's able to come up with enough information to tell the jury that he believes it's the cop's bullet. Now, there's one other thing that happens in real life. The main eyewitness to the case in real life gets sick and goes into the hospital and dies. She went into the hospital, Tom, because she had congestion in her chest. She had a cold. And somehow she doesn't come out. She dies. And we believe in real life that somebody got to her and did something to her, although the medical examiner can't determine whether or not that's the case. But that's so we lost in real life, we lost a very, very good witness. So in my case, that same thing happens. An eyewitness dies under strange circumstances. In the book, she goes to a dentist's office for her teeth to be cleaned and never comes out. And I get an FBI expert in order to prove that she was strangled and killed. And I don't want to give away all of the details in the book, but ultimately she is it's determined that because of certain things that are found in her throat, that the devil's guy or the devil himself killed her. So this case became in real life, it became a case that not I don't want to say haunted me, but I spent 4 or 5 months of my life doing nothing but preparing this case. Had already been tried twice before I got it. The witnesses had already been cross-examined twice with inconsistent statements, and the eyewitness gone and the bullet still in the guy's leg. So it was really an uphill battle. But even when the jury, and in the real life, the jury found him not guilty, I'm not ashamed to say this. I walked out of the courtroom, found a room in the courthouse, empty room in the courthouse, and I sat on the floor and I cried because that's how
Sure.
much of my being was put into this case. So I use this as story number one, but I add something to it in the book. One of the and by the way, in real life, the way that the trial played out, the defense, because of this whole Black Liberation Army Attica riot liberal bent to the defense team, they were defending Black Liberation Army guys all over the country, and they were able to, and how they did this, I have no idea, but they were able to call character witnesses for this guy who was in jail and part of this riot because these important people in society felt sorry for this guy because they felt he was railroaded by the system, etc. And you know the game. And so we had all of these prominent people testifying that they knew him, that he could never do this killing, etc., etc. So I had to duplicate that in the book. And what I did, and this brings me to story number two, what I added to story number one was this character who was a reverend, a appeared to be a very, very important, well-respected reverend in Brooklyn who befriends the bad guy. And he meets him because the reverend's son is in jail. He meets him at that time. The bad guy helped his son out of some problems in the prison. So the reverend, of course, is controlled by the devil. And nobody knows this at this point, but the reverend has been compromised by the devil, and he tells the bad guy who's on trial, "I'll help you out. I'll be your character witness, and I'll get other prominent people to do it." So I'm not going to tell you how part one ends because it's somebody just read the book, friend of mine, and told me that they couldn't put it down because they needed to find out what was going to happen, and when it happened, they were shocked. So in any event, so the reverend testifies, and Michael Gioca doesn't know much about him, but he starts to get information that this reverend may not necessarily be on the up and up. And as it turns out, what he learns is that the reverend is a con man, and he has conned Brooklynites for a very, very long time, and has conned New Yorkers for a very long time by pretending to be this well-respected, by pretending to be a reverend, first of all, establishing a church in Brooklyn where he's able to draw people in. But what he has done is he has actually recruits young women into his quote unquote church, and to carry out the con, he dresses them as Catholic nuns and
Jeez.
sends them out into the streets of Brooklyn to beg, out into the streets of New York City to solicit funds and to beg for for donations, etc. They come back to the church where they all live and turn over the money to this guy. Now you would think that the Reverend would take care of them. Well, he does. How does he take care of them? He gives them a room. He gives them room and board. They're usually people who are on the outskirts of society anyway. People who have lost their, who have separated from their families, young girls. But what he does is he seduces them. He plies them with drugs. They become addicted. They depend on him, and he essentially rapes them. He has sex with them on a regular basis. And in real life, the Reverend fathered about 42 or 43 children, all of them living in this apartment building in Brooklyn, which he has bought. His church is on the first floor. Same thing in the book. In real life, two of these young women understand what has happened to them. And in real life, they come to us in the DA's office and tell us the whole story. Guess what happens to them? They disappear. What happens is that the Reverend in real life got wind of the fact that they had come to the DA's office because they were not smart enough to keep their mouth shut, and he kills them. He kills both of them. He had one of the people on his staff in real life was a guy who he recruited out of the medical examiner's office in Brooklyn, who knew how to cut up bodies.
Jesus.
He cuts up these young girls and then burns their bodies in a tub of hot cooking oil. And what's left is just the remnants, little bones and remnants of their bodies. Now, Tom, I had this guy in my office, in real life, of course, and he explained to me what I just told you, and he said, this is his comment. He said, Mike, it was just like frying chicken. That's what it looked like. So what does he do? What do they do with the what's left of these young ladies? They scoop up all of their what's left of their bodies and the ashes, etc., bone, bring it up to a location in upstate New York, which is a camp that the Reverend has purchased, and he has a lake on the campsite, on the campgrounds. And what they did was they drive up there and they would dump the remains of these young ladies into that camp, into that lake. When we got all this information, because there were other people who finally turned on the Reverend. When we discovered this, we sent scuba divers up to the lake and recovered the remains of the bodies. And I'll never forget this. I didn't try the case. It was someone who had been in the office longer than I had, who was trying. I was at the trial and I'm sitting there, and the Reverend is saying, "You got no evidence. You got no evidence." And I'll never forget this as long as I live. The prosecutor had the medical examiner's office string bones onto a wire, so it looked like a bracelet of bones. And he said, so the prosecutor said to him, the Reverend said, "You got nothing." He said, "Really? Well, what about this?" And he threw the bracelet of bones up onto the witness stand and asked them, and it was shocking. The courtroom was packed, shocked that he would do this. And of course, the prosecutor later on explained where the bones came from.
Jeez.
So I use this whole thing, and really what we are looking for, after, of course, the Reverend in real life gets convicted, and what I'm looking for is the other girls in real life. There are other women whose bodies were never recovered, and we get one of his sons turns and comes to me and tells me, that he knows that there are bodies out there. He's willing to be a witness. And he tells me that the guy who really knows this is his other brother who was convicted along with his father, right? And he happens to be in Brooklyn because he's looking to appeal his case, and the brother is down there looking to appeal his case. Now, he is in jail. Guess who he's in jail with? Luigi Roncesvalli, the
The
subject
bowling
of
ball.
the bowling ball, the subject of my book, Homicide is My Business. And I get Luigi. The brother wants Luigi, because he knows he's a hitman, to kill the informant brother who had come to me, because he was afraid that we would uncover those bodies and that he would get convicted again and he'd be in jail for the rest of his life. And Luigi gets him to tell us where the bodies are buried. It was such a long time, Tom. We sent cadaver dogs. We sent digging equipment, bulldozers out to a spot in Queens, New York, which is east of Brooklyn, and spent days digging up sides of the roads of this particular location. So much so that it caught the attention of the newspapers. And there was a big story about how the DA's office in Brooklyn is digging up Queens, and that's what we were looking for, the bodies, but we never found them in real life. The in the book, Gioka puts the Reverend on trial for the murder of two of the people that he kills, just like in real life. And again, I'm not going to divulge what happens because I really think your readers will like that story. So that's story number two. This Reverend, believe me, was something. I remember as a kid, and then as an adult, being in various places in Brooklyn. Let's say I was in a coffee shop, or particularly around the office, even around the office. One of these nuns would come in, and with a can asking for money, etc. And I knew the head. I knew the one who was in charge. Her name was they called her Reverend Jenkins. And she came in one time. I was sitting in a coffee shop near the office and was begging. And I said to her, I basically said, "Get the fuck out of here. I know who you are, and you got to just leave, go." She cursed me, you can't believe, and walked out with her tail between her legs, when she walked out of the coffee shop. So I knew the whole story. I knew the whole story. And by the way, this in real life, this church, apartment building and church was not that far from where I lived. And it was I didn't find that out until I started, with the case. So the Reverend is story number two. Now, story number three is is in Brooklyn about I would say maybe 1990. We had an unfortunate accident occur in a section of the borough that is mainly populated by members of the Hasidic Jewish sect. They they really they basically own all kinds of buildings and apartments, and they have a big temple there, known worldwide. They're a group. The sect is called the Lubavitcher sect, and they're very
Hmm.
powerful politically. So one evening in the summer, the rabbi is returning from, I believe, a visit to the former rabbi's grave in Queens. And he's got like a two-car entourage. And the car in front, the first car, not the one he's in, strikes a young Caribbean American kid who's on his bike and kills him. Total accident. Um, and that sets off a firestorm in that neighborhood. The Jews and the African Americans, Caribbean Americans in that neighborhood never got along and never get along. And it was like a spark to a dry forest.
Hmm.
Riots began almost immediately, and they lasted for 3 days, 4 days. Property destroyed, cars overturned. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And the mayor we had at the time was a guy named Dinkins, David Dinkins, who was a complete waste as a mayor. I mean, just a complete waste. And he allowed this to continue. I mean, for 3 days, never sent the police in to put it down until finally one of his advisors, a guy named Ray Kelly, who became the police commissioner, said, "We got to do something. We've got to, send the police in there, and we've got to quell this 3 days or 4 days of rioting." I mean, it was unbelievable, Tom. I remember it as if it was yesterday. And what I'm leading to is during the first day of the riots, there was a young rabbinical student who had come from Australia, who didn't live in the neighborhood, but was in the neighborhood, unfortunately, when the riot started. And he was on a block away or 2 blocks away from the center of the riot. And he was walking back to his apartment, and he was set upon by rioters, and he was killed. His name was Yankel, in real life, Yankel Rosenbaum was his name. That was the only death that occurred during the course of the rioting. And of course, it became a cause célèbre. It really was a case that everybody knew about. Everybody wanted to solve the case, because here's a kid, essentially a kid, who's set upon by people who, only because he had Jewish and rabbinical garb on, he had the hat, and he had the Hasidic Jews dressed with the black hat, and they're distinctive in terms of their dress. That's why he was killed. And when we finally made the arrest of the guy who killed him, we tried the case. I came back to the DA's office just as the trial was started. And I was in charge of the homicide bureau at the time. I didn't try the case because two of my assistants had already gotten the case and were ready and prepared to do it. And he had a lawyer, another one of these lawyers who was kind of a left-wing guy who everybody was persecuted, etc. And he did a good job and was able to get an acquittal of the killer. But we didn't stop there. It was just such a horrific thing. We couldn't stop there. And if it was me or my boss, came up with the idea of going to the Attorney General of the United States, whose name was Janet Reno at the time, and getting her to agree to have the U.S. Attorney try this guy for a civil rights violation. It wasn't double jeopardy, because the civil rights violation, and what the violation was, is by killing him, he deprived him of his civil right to live. And I went to Washington with a contingent of people from my office, including the DA's office, and we sat down with Reno in her conference room and talked about this, and she agreed to do it. And so there wasn't the guy wasn't off the hook completely. He was tried in federal court for the civil rights violation, and he was convicted. So I use this now as the story that kind of wraps up the book. The devil has gotten the reverend is in jail, and I don't let the reverend off the hook. He goes to jail. But you'll see that there is another escape that the devil orchestrates. And how does he orchestrate it? He creates this turmoil that ignites the rioting in Brooklyn. And there are so many people who are arrested that the courts and the jails are so crowded with visitors and bad guys and bad gals, etc., that the devil takes advantage of that. And somehow, and if you read the book, you'll see how he fashions enough of fashions a deception to get this escape, to get the escape to be successful. Okay. Now, what's the difference? In real life, they use the rabbinical student with a car accident. In Fallen Angel, what I do is I have Monsignor Romano as the person who runs over, and at least pretends in the book, it looks as if he has done it, runs over a young black woman. And that sets a spark because the devil is there to create
Mhm.
a real problem in Brooklyn. Who is the rabbinical student in my story? During the rioting, the people, the devil, of course, is behind all of the rioting. And instead of like in real life, they go after the Jewish situation in my book, they go after Catholics and they burn churches, that kind of thing. And what happens is in one church, a young seminarian who is in Brooklyn studying with the pastor of that church walks into the church when the fire is started and he tries to put it out with a fire extinguisher and he's killed and shot. And that becomes the trial, that the arrest. And there are other things. I played around with the judge and who the judge is, etc. And what I did is, even though I didn't know there was going to be a book four, I set up an ending that I hoped would persuade the publisher and show her that there's more life to this story. And it wasn't an end, and it's not an end. And I'll give you that much. At least I'll tell you your folks that it's not an end, but it's a good ending to this book, but leaves open the idea that there could be a book four. I got to tell you one other thing.
Yeah.
I have a good friend of mine who was my uh, predecessor in the rackets division in the Brooklyn DA's office. He retired. His name is Dennis Hawkins, and I took his job, and we were friends when I was in charge of trials and in charge of homicide. He was in charge of rackets, so we became friends, and we stayed friends even when he left the office, and we've stayed friends to this day. And I see him semi regularly. We go out to dinner and we stay in touch, through emails and telephone, etc. And Dennis has become a poet. He's now writing poetry, and he's very good. So he loves the Fallen Angel books. He loves them. I mean, when we go out to dinner, he talks about what my idea was. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? That kind of thing. And and in the beginning, as you know, in the beginning of each of the books, I always have sort of like a little, either a line of, like in this one, it's be careful who you're nice to. The devil was once an angel. And I have things like that in the beginning of each of book one and book two. So he said, "What if I were to do a poem and you can use it, in the beginning of your book, like you do these other things?" I said, "It's great, Dennis. Do." So he comes up with a poem, but it wasn't right for the beginning. And when you read it, you'll see how right it was for how I fashioned the ending of this book, of book three. And I used Dennis's 4 or 5 line poem to kind of bring the reader to the idea that, there is going to be another book. And I'm very pleased at the way it turned out. And so these 3 stories meant a lot to me. I mean, I was involved intimately in the case with the killing of the 2 police officers. I was involved with the situation regarding the reverend, um, because I had the informants. And of course, I was involved, and not of course, but I was also involved in the riot situation, because after the acquittal of the murderer of Yankel Rosenbaum, it was my job to come up with a case that I could present to the Attorney General, and persuade her to take the case into federal court, and to try the murderer of Yankel Rosenbaum. So that's why I say and when I started when we started today, that these cases were really near and dear to my heart. I mean, they were cases that I had intimate knowledge of. Not that the others weren't in the other books, but these 3 were kind of were very important to me, because the riots, for instance, meant a lot. I mean, and also I got to know excuse me, Yankel Rosenbaum's brother. He came from Australia when the acquittal occurred, and I sat with him and I told him that we didn't end this investigation. The case is not over. We've got an idea, and of course, the idea was to go to the feds and get them to try him, for a civil rights violation. So they were personal to me, and the case involving the cops. I don't need any more to say other than, again, it affected me so much that I cried when I lost that case. I really did. It was unbelievable, and I had put so much work into it. But the good part of that is Jimmy Dennedy and I became best friends after that case. We spent months together, Tom. I got him assigned to me in the office. He was my personal
Hell yeah.
cop who was personally assigned to me along with the detective who had the case. So it was our three of us, our team that tried to make this case that had been hung juries for two trials before, tried to get it better. And we did find new witnesses. We did find new witnesses. And Jimmy was so good at investigating this whole Black Liberation Army situation. If you went to his car right now and opened the trunk, you'd see boxes of files, terrorist files that he has compiled, that he still keeps. He still has them. And one of the things that we found during the course of the investigation and putting the trial together was we were able to come up with, at a funeral, there's a sign-in book for people to sign so the family knows who showed up at the wake, etc. And we found the book for the dead partner of the Black Liberation Army guy who was killed at the scene. By the way, by him. He's a stray bullet got this guy and killed him. And you know who visited the bad guy? Joanne Chesimard. Joanne Chesimard she was one of the leaders of the Black Liberation Army. She's now has a different name. She killed a police officer in New Jersey, and she was able to escape to Cuba, and she's been living in Cuba for all of these years she has a different name, and now, but it's a Muslim name. She doesn't use Joanne Chesimard. But we found that book, and it was almost like oh shit, we found a piece of gold here. No one knows where she is, and here it is. This is before we knew that she was in Cuba. We have this book with her name in it. So that's why I say I put so much into these cases that it really was a pleasure for me to now take them and to adapt them to the story of Gioka and his adversary, the devil, and things worked. I mean, who in their right mind would think that there wasn't an evil force in this reverend's head to
Sure.
take apart young women, dismember them, and then burn them in
No,
cooking
it's
oil? I
pure
mean,
it's demonic. It's purely
demonic,
it's
right?
not
Yeah,
even tangentially evil.
right,
It's
right.
so excessively. It's not even, not that it justifies it, but it's not even evil to a goal. It's not like, I don't know, they did this. It's
Not at all. You know what the goal was?
not like it's a corporate
Protect his
merger or
ass.
the
Yeah,
invasion of a country where
no,
it's at the
no,
$1 trillion empire level. Doesn't make it right. But even then, you're like, yeah, I get why ExxonMobil did it. There's not even this. This is just
yep,
so over the top for nothing. And that's evil.
correct.
So it's not even loosely evil. That's fucking evil.
Personal. He did it just for to save his own ass, and so it was really perfect. And of course, the two innocent cops. I mean, they were just walking on the street, and they weren't even looking to identify to investigate these two guys. They were on the street, and they happened to pass at the same time these guys were coming from their car or going to their car, and these guys opened fire and killed them. It was really a real tragedy, and it's something again that obviously has stuck with me after all these years. Um, I tried that case in 1980.
Jeez.
Actually, the end of 79 into 1980. That's when I tried the case. So it was something again that was kind of it's I don't know, it's burned into my psyche, and it was perfect. I knew that I would have Gioka and the devil get involved in something in which, to me, it was my way of not, I don't want to say honor is not the right word, but of recognizing and I don't want to give it away, but of kind of writing in terms of Rightghting, not
Yeah,
WR,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
righting a wrong. It was,
Yeah.
even though it was in novel form, it made me feel good when I finished up that part of the book. So I hope that your viewers, your listeners will go out and get the book. I really believe that they'll love it. My friend, and of course he is my friend, but he is a critic. He would tell me he came to the book party, bought the book. My friend Dennis, the guy that I was talking about, and that was on a Thursday night. Friday evening, I got a message from him that he finished the book. That's how much he loved it. And
Fucking
he wrote me this really long kind of review that really made me feel good. And he said, "This is what you call a page turner, because there are things in here that," he said, I admire you for being able to set it up so that the reader doesn't know or doesn't figure out what's going to happen, but has to turn the page literally and get to to how the situation resolves itself. So I think, I know it's selfish to say it, but it's important
No, it's not.
me
It's
that it's that people go out and get it and read it. I think it really is something which they will enjoy. And at some point down the road, there'll be an audiobook. So for those who don't read, you'll be able to listen to it, and it'll be
yeah.
me
Yeah.
saying it. So
No,
anyway,
it's not selfish. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your work. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's yeah, I don't think it's selfish at all. There's a pride that comes with when you put your heart and soul into something and you're proud of it. Like that's fine. I wouldn't call it
yeah,
selfish. Um, but yeah, no, for everybody listening, the links to these are in the description. I'd implore you to go grab them. Also, yeah, homicide is my business. We covered that like 2 years ago or a year ago. Go grab that one as well. Luigi Ronce's Folly. That was a fucking great story. I legitimately enjoyed that one. That was sick.
I,
Um,
I'm going to be doing a library talk. There's a libraries in this area will do. They have these groups that come together, and they get writers to come in and discuss stories, etc., in books. And I'm doing one on Saturday on homicide is my business. So
oh, nice.
I did one, and you'll appreciate this because we went over this book for many of your podcasts, Crooked Brooklyn, because there were so many stories in there. I did a library talk with Crooked Brooklyn about maybe a month ago now, and I had about 35 people in the room, and I got to tell you, Tom, again, selfishly, they were mesmerized by the stories. And when I asked for questions at the end, I spent another 10 or 15 minutes answering questions. And is somebody came up to me and said, "You have had quite a career. This is really you've done a great job." And the book, they loved it. So I'm gonna keep writing as long as I'm breathing. So we'll see what happens. And I'm hoping that when we do talk about a book again, it'll be Hard Guys Cry. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, Mike, if you don't mind, I've got a rather hard stop right now. But again, for everybody listening, please go in the description. Please go grab any of the books. I guarantee you, you'll enjoy them. Or go back and listen to them on here. You get a little preview of it through the podcast we do. Um, but I
yeah,
wouldn't keep having you back on if I didn't enjoy the writing. If I didn't enjoy hanging out with you, you're a cool fucking dude. So, guys,
thank you, Tom.
go show Mike some love. Go grab a book. Don't be a bum. Um,
Say hello to your mom for me, okay?
absolutely
Well,
will.
you got a visit coming,
Yeah,
and kiss that baby. It's important to go up and
absolutely.
hug him and kiss him. It's something which you will never never forget. It's
Yeah.
just amazing how
No, it's a
babies
beautiful
do
thing.
for you.
It's a beautiful thing. Um, Shoot me a text. We'll schedule the next one. I'll send you this
Okay.
episode. Mike, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for your time, brother.
Thank you, Tom.
All
Have
right,
a good
man.
one.
Thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much.